This project started with some scrap wood that I just couldn't seem to throw away. These cutoffs were from a chevron cutting board, and they were triangles that I glued together. I set them on the shelf and didn't know what to do with them, so now I'm going to turn them into a cutting board. Yeah, I know, really original. But somehow the market isn't saturated and these things are still selling. Or maybe you just want to use your scraps to make a cutting board for somebody for a gift. So let's get started. These other pieces were more cutoffs that I just had sitting on the shelf. Obviously, they were a little nicer, but it'll work well to use up some of this scrap wood and turn it into something I can sell or give away. I didn't have any specific idea on the layout of how I was going to construct this board, but I just decided to puzzle piece fit it together and see how it turned out. I ripped the pieces down and spent some time on the crosscut sled, and then dry fitted together what I thought was a decent pattern. After that, it was time to just glue this thing up. I'm using Titebond 3 just because it's waterproof and exterior rated, and hopefully it'll hold up over time with this board getting wet and dry. Now we'll intro into a 20-second musical clamping montage because, well, I don't really have anything important to say at this point. And here's the board after it's all glued up. Now it's time to run it through the planer and drum sander and get it flattened up. This board's about 12.5 inches wide by somewhere around 17 inches long, and it's going to end up at about 1.1 inch thick after all this flattening. Then I used an 1/8 inch roundover bit just to take these sharp edges off the board, and I use a cove bit on the end and put a 5-inch wide cove on both ends for handholds. And now if there was only a way to fast forward the sanding in real life, but alas, there is not. After sanding down to 120, I wet down the board to raise the grain on the surface. You don't want to saturate the board to really soak in, but you want to hit the surface grain to get it to raise and then let it dry. After a few hours, you can begin sanding it back down. I lightly sand it with 220 grit at this point and then move right to 300 for the final sanding. With the sanding complete, it's time to put mineral oil on this. I saturate it pretty well and leave it sit for 2 to 4 hours. After that, just wipe off the excess, and I'm going to go ahead and add some feet to this one to raise it up slightly off the counter. And just like that, there's a few less pieces of cutoffs on the shelf, and there's a beautiful cutting board to show for it. By the way, I should add that this one is made out of walnut, maple, and cherry. Thanks for watching. Please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.